My name is Bez, and I'll be sharing my story of a God journey. So my parents sent me to an independent Christian primary school in Nigeria, and it was lovely being there. It was great. And I remember one day in church service, I was so weepy and I was so emotional. I didn't really know what was happening to me. So when I got back to the dormitory, I just knelt down by my bed and said, Lord, I'm willing to invite you into my heart now. And that was when things really changed for me, because I started experiencing miracles. I lost my dad later on, some years later, and my dad had sent me to this very expensive school in secondary school in Nigeria, and he was the breadwinner. And when that happened, it was really tough to continue schooling because we're not able to pay the tuition anymore. But what happened was very interesting, because somebody anonymously decided to pay my tuition from my second year in secondary school to my sixth year in secondary school. I started seeing the hands of God even when I was in grief and when my father wasn't around. Later on, going to university, the same thing happened. I studied information technology, and it was a 5-year course in my university. But every year, somebody paid my tuition. And it was just God showing his love on me and showing me his love as a father, that yes, even though my father isn't around, I'm his child. And I started really seeking out God and searching out for God and who he was and my purpose in life. And in that search, I found that my purpose was to use music as a vehicle to add value to people. But I never knew how that would materialize or how that would pan out. So immediately after university, I went into the music industry. I met up with a producer and we started creating music. Over the span of my career, we created 4 albums and we're quite successful in Nigeria, but I felt that there was still something missing. I remember being on stage in one of my productions, Bez Live. We had like 1,000 people. And I was on stage and I was thinking, why am I here? Why am I performing to these people? It felt like I didn't enjoy what I was doing and there was something missing. But I knew at that time that God had been calling me to create worship music, but I didn't want to do it because worship music would mean me performing or playing in churches, which I didn't want to do. And it would mean me getting gifts instead of just sending an invoice and being paid what I was being paid, by the corporates. And it was really tough for me to do. But I feel like God needed to take me from a place of performance into the place of leading people into worship. He needed to take me from a place of where it was all about me and the show and the glitz and the lights and the glamour, to a place where it was humility and it was a place of service and obedience and just listening to his voice and doing what he told me to do and helping people to come into their own purpose through worship, through music and discovering him. I didn't think I was qualified to do that. I hadn't done any study on worship. I hadn't done any study on theology, and it was just really my journey with God. Fast forward to 2020 and the pandemic hit, and here I was, no gigs, having a lot of time, and what did I think I should do at the time? And I got introduced to some people who were doing courses in prophetic school, hearing God's voice, and I thought this would be a great time to do that since I wasn't really doing anything. And these courses expected me to spend a lot of time in prayer, a lot of time Bible reading, and also speaking people and sharing what God was speaking to me about. And the more I started spending time in prayer, the more the life of God started changing me, changing who I was. Now here I was, this celebrity who performed for himself and who it was all about self-promotion, social media. This is what I want to do. This is my strategy. This is where I'm going. These are the tours I'm going for. These are the awards I'm going to win. to a place where God was saying, lay everything on the altar. Give me these desires. Take away those desires and just give it to me. And it's not about you anymore, but about other people. Then I had a dream in early 2021, and that dream was basically telling me to move my family and I to the United Kingdom. Where we were was quite comfortable, living the celebrity life. People knew us in the space, but then God was telling me to move my family and I to an unknown country, for me, and start from scratch. And it was going to be a step of faith and of courage. And I needed God to be very clear with me on what this was all about. Eventually, we took that leap. Every resource we needed, all the resources we needed came. All the support we needed came. And we found ourselves in Cambridge. I think my journey to where I am now has been riddled with a lot of bumps on the road, a lot of adversity, losing my dad, having a holy discontentment in me. But I realized that if I laid everything to God and if I trusted in Him, He'll be able to hold my hand and take me from where I was to the next step. Leaning on God was such a difficult thing to do because I love to be in control. It meant that I needed to let everything go. It meant that I needed to lose all control. And it meant that I needed to rely fully on God. And that's what I did. It took a lot of courage and a lot of obedience. But as soon as I did that, I started to see things play out. Questions were answered. My relationships became better. And I could just see me becoming who God really wanted me to be. I think I'm still on that journey where I'm discovering who I am and discovering what God is laying in my heart and discovering what God wants me to do. But I think right now I've decided that I'm going to live my life for God. If He has created me to be a source of inspiration, a source of transformation and healing for people, then that is who I'm going to be. This life for me is no longer about me and my desires or what I want, but then it is, what is God doing and how can I be involved? And how can the pleasure of God be made manifest in my hands? And that is my journey, and that is my story.